You're listening to the Nordic Blog. Today's topic, how CIOs are using AMS to manage epic complexity. Healthcare CIOs aren't short on data, but many are struggling to use it. Fragmented systems, inconsistent integration, and limited interoperability continue to consume time and attention, leaving IT teams focused on keeping the lights on instead of moving the organization forward. As leaders look toward strategic initiatives like AI, advanced analytics, and smarter decision-making, the reality is that foundational issues, like how EHR work is supported, governed, and sustained, often stand in the way. To better understand how CIOs are navigating this tension, Nordic analyzed insights from a 2026 survey of healthcare CIOs and IT leaders using Epic Application Managed Services, AMS. The findings show how organizations increasingly use AMS not just to manage workload, but to reduce fragmentation, restore clarity, and create the capacity needed to focus on work that adds the highest value. Epic environments are becoming more complex. As work scales, the real risk isn't just cost overruns, it's losing visibility into how work is actually being done. As health systems modernize their technology investments, integrate new data sources, and pursue AI, the challenge isn't access to data. It's keeping that data reliable, governed, and usable once systems are live. This is where CIOs are reevaluating Application Managed Services, AMS, not as IT support coverage, but as the operating layer that protects stability, drives performance, and increases people capacity over time. In fact, 61% of healthcare IT leaders say outsourced managed services are now a central part of their IT strategy rather than a supplemental one. These insights are based on Nordic-led research, informed by a 2026 survey of healthcare CIOs and IT leaders using Epic Application Management Services. Responses show that this pressure is already shaping strategy, with many organizations now treating managed services as a core part of how Epic work is delivered. Historically, organizations adopted AMS to solve coverage gaps and staffing challenges. Survey responses suggest that it's changing. CIOs increasingly view AMS as part of how Epic work is owned, governed, and sustained day to day, not just extra help when teams are stretched thin. As CIOs rethink Epic AMS as part of the operating model, the survey shows clear operational impact, particularly in areas that directly affect cost, capacity, and performance. On the IT side, respondents report reduced workload and faster problem-solving after outsourcing Epic support. On the clinical side, many report less administrative burden for clinicians. While CIOs may be cautious about labeling these outcomes as direct cost savings, they reduce internal effort, limit escalation, and protect capacity in some of the most resource-intensive parts of the organization. In practice, this means fewer hours spent on routine support, less time lost to delays or rework, and more predictable execution across teams. These changes don't always appear as a single budget line item, but they have real financial impact by freeing up internal staff and reducing operational friction. Even as healthcare leaders report operational benefits from Epic AMS, the survey shows clear limits on how far they are willing to expand it. Cost is the most frequently cited constraint, with 59% of respondents saying it can be a primary barrier to outsourcing more Epic AMS support. But cost is not the only factor shaping adoption decisions. Concerns about control and confidence also play a significant role. More than half, 51%, prefer to keep work in-house, while 44% cite security or compliance concerns. These responses suggest that hesitation is less about whether AMS delivers value and more about how risk, accountability, and oversight scale as reliance increases. Governance practices reinforce this tension. In the survey, 77% of respondents said they play a leading role in Epic AMS decisions, reflecting how closely managed services are tied to executive-level oversight once embedded in daily operations. As reliance on AMS grows, governance challenges tend to surface not when support breaks down, but when decision ownership, prioritization, and escalation paths are inconsistently defined. Without clear governance, confidence erodes not because of a system failure, but because accountability is harder to see. The survey shows that 46% of organizations measure IT impact using a balance of cost savings and customer satisfaction. 18% measure IT impact primarily through cost-saving metrics. Only 3% say IT impact is not formally measured at all. At the same time, respondents explicitly rank reducing overall costs as a future Epic AMS priority, alongside security, workflow optimization, and increasingly, analytics and reporting capabilities. This signals a shift toward AMS models that pair cost efficiency with greater transparency, insight, and assurance. As Epic AMS becomes a permanent part of the IT operating model, the question for CIOs is no longer whether to use AMS, but whether their model is structured to deliver measurable value without introducing new risk. Leading organizations are stepping back to reassess AMS readiness against their own cost pressures, risk tolerance, and operational priorities, asking questions like, where are we still paying for avoidable inefficiency? What workload should AMS absorb that it doesn't today? How do we validate cost impact without increasing risk? How consistently can we see and trust data on workload, performance, and cost impact across AMS and internal teams? These questions tend to surface the same core focus areas. Cost discipline. Do we understand where AMS is actually influencing cost? Capacity optimization. Is AMS protecting internal capacity where it matters most? Risk and governance. Does our governance model match the level of reliance we place on AMS? Transparency and reporting. Do we have consistent, decision-grade data to validate cost, performance, and outcomes over time? These are no longer hypothetical questions. They reflect a market where CIOs increasingly judge AMS not just on coverage, but on its ability to support sustained cost control, operational resilience, and confident, data-backed decision-making. Epic AMS now carries greater responsibility and greater scrutiny. For CIOs, the path forward is not about choosing more AMS, but about defining it with intention. The strongest models reduce cost and workload while preserving what matters most: control, visibility, and trust. Design and govern AMS deliberately, and it becomes a stabilizing force, not a leap of faith. To learn more about how Nordic can help you with AMS, visit us at nordicglobal.com.